Welcome to Moss Marketing Mondays, aka the M3 Podcast. Brought to you by Moss Marketing Group, bringing you everything marketing every Monday. Stay tuned for marketing tips and tricks you can use today. The M3 Podcast, marketing knowledge to help you succeed. Let's get started.
Welcome back to the M3 Podcast. This week we're doing something a little different. One, we have no more headphones, so we're going to see how this goes. Testing out some new audio. And we have all of MMG's, or I'm not going to say all of the MMG squad, but we have a table full of people from MMG. And we got Ricky, we got Dalton, we got Logan, we got Dre.
What's up down there, dude?
How's the weather down there?
That's pretty good,
You
man.
guys are next to the heater. It's a little chilly over here.
So this podcast is dropping. This podcast, if you're listening to it, it's dropped January 1. And we are going over a recap of 2023 and going into 2024. 2023, I think, has been the year of growth for us. I think there's been a lot of things figured out as a business as a whole. I'm not going to say I figured it out. I'm going to say that we figured it out as a team. And there's so many hurdles that we overcame. There's so much that happened in 23 that it was, I feel 23 is the year that we solidified Moss Marketing Group as a true company. And we figured out profit. We figured out a lot of different things. We put processes in place. We figured out procedures. And when I say figured out, we didn't
We took a step in the right direction.
Yes, we are moving in the right direction, but it's things that we have our eye on that is launching us to where we need to go. So I think that it's taking a step back and enjoying that journey that we take. And I talk about this in the office all the time where we set these crazy goals and we have these crazy dreams that we want to go after, but the most fun part is the journey to get there. And really taking a step back and enjoying every minute of that I do kind of regret that a little bit from when we were in the house and in the basement. That at that point we were grinding so hard that I didn't really take the time to step back and say, these are going to be days that we look back at that are like, that was fun.
Well, and we were also just grinding so hard to get out of the basement for whatever reason. I mean, it was pretty nice down there. But it felt like we needed to get a space to solidify it, which obviously, and that is one of the steps. But I feel like we were just so rushing to make that next step that you're right, we didn't. We kind of took it for granted.
And I feel like you're making those steps and you're pushing to that next point. And it's crazy when you're new, and we're not a ginormous company yet, but it's like we're scaling into that phase. But in the beginning, those steps are just so fast, one after another.
Yeah.
And it doesn't slow down. And it's like, I think it's crazy when people are like, I'm ready for life to slow down. I'm telling you, it doesn't come. It just keeps picking up more and more traction. It gets busier. It gets fuller. And life happens outside that too. We have weddings this next year. I had multiple weddings this year. And there's all these other things that are still happening on a personal level. And you're still trying to make sure you're doing the right thing in business all the time by new accounts, by current accounts, by all these different things. And it's like, in the beginning, I was always like, when we would talk about it, we would talk about how it comes up the totem pole that there was no one for me to go to with a question. That there was no book that I was given that had like all the golden rules in it that's like, hey, this is exactly how you do it. To where sometimes it's just shoot from the hip, and not everyone always agrees with those decisions. But in my mind, I justified those as the correct decisions to launch us to the next point. And that is something that I have found that I've became more confident in doing with the correct people around me. That I can make those decisions on the fly. And I can say, this is what we're going to do, but I believe in everyone that's around me to get us to that spot. Yeah. So I think 23 was, I'm always going to look at that as our year to make our step. And I feel like we've now put ourselves at the starting line.
I feel like that's something we also talk about a lot is saying something and doing something, whether it's right, wrong, indifferent, as long as you're taking a step forward, you're doing something to progress yourself, which I think a lot of people miss, and they always think about it has to be perfect, has to be perfect, has to be perfect. If you start and then critique along the way, it's better than just not starting at all.
Yeah. And you're going to take a step forward. If it's the correct step or the wrong step, one of two things is going to happen. You're either going to move forward or you're going to learn a lesson of something not to do that's also going to move you forward.
Yeah.
Towards, I don't like idea people. We know a lot of them in the world. Anybody out there knows idea people. And so it's people that just talk about ideas all the time, but they don't take action on what they talk about. And that's been one of my biggest. I have people come up to me all the time and ask me, like, how have you assembled a group of people that you have? That's all I really ever want to go down for. If I can go down of saying I brought together the strongest group of people and put them all in one location, I did my job. But everyone that is in the walls of MMG are action takers. We don't hire idea people. And people are like, you need the idea person. The idea person that never takes a step, I'd rather take the person that has one or two ideas instead of 100, that takes action on their ideas every single time that they have one. And I will stand behind that person full speed. But it's they're actually taking steps to better themselves. They're taking steps to learn instead of just standing at the starting line and never moving.
Yeah.
So
I think people get so afraid of what can happen or what could go wrong, when you make a big decision or you take a chance to start something new or to learn a new skill. But it's like, in reality, we get so scared of the dumbest things in life. It's like, okay, if you quit your job to try and pursue something else and it doesn't work out, do you really think that you're not going to be able to get another job? Your life's not over. Your life's just going to look a little different. You're going to have to take a step back then as well, get back to whatever. So I just think people get too scared of making change and going for things.
I think a lot of times people build a false reality. Like when you think about, and I was guilty of it too when I created MMG, and it's something I started training my mind the longer we progressed forward, was in the beginning, all I thought about were the negative outcomes of what was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I built these visions in my head of like, well, this is what it looks like if it doesn't work. This is what it looks like if it doesn't work. This is what it looks like if it doesn't work. And I'm not saying it's like building a different plan, but those were just always living in my head rent free.
Mm-hmm.
That's not in my head at all anymore. Like now, every vision that I have in my head is about progression forward and where we are moving as a company. There is no more like, if this doesn't work.
Yeah.
But it's hard like changing that mindset because a lot of times you build this false reality, this false future that most of the time never even happens.
I mean, I think if you think about it enough, it will happen. I wouldn't even call it a false reality, but it's your perspective on the future in general. Like if you're always looking for a shit sandwich to eat, you're going to find plenty of shit sandwiches to eat. But if you are focusing, like you do an awesome job of the benefit of what if it does work, that's a totally different conversation. And then you're starting to look for opportunities instead of setbacks.
I feel like we came a long way in like identifying our problems too and our pain points.
Yep.
Like before 2023, I feel like we could eventually identify them, but then our like reaction was so much later on down the road. I feel like this year we identified our problems fairly quickly, and then there was many nights in here, after a podcast, we were in here just hashing those things out. Like this shit has to be figured out, like going forward. And
it almost feels like last year we were so focused on trying to keep up, which obviously we were more busy this year, but we all just got more used to it. That we just hadn't had the time or hadn't taken the time to make those adjustments.
Mm-hmm. And I think last year we didn't know what adjustments we were making.
Yeah.
Like I think we were just grinding, doing the work.
The office was an adjustment. So we had to adjust to that.
It was like
we
didn't know how to, and when I say we didn't know how to run a company as a whole. We didn't know what management looked like. We didn't know how to overcome those hurdles. Like it was a whole new set of hurdles for every person in here. And it's like, it's hard sometimes when you're at that spot and you're trying to help people out that I'm not saying I have once again, I don't have the golden book that tells me how to do it all.
I swear you're hiding it somewhere.
It's got to be hidden around here somewhere. But it's like, I'm learning just as quickly as everyone else is. But it's, like Dalton said, we were overcoming those things so much quicker where we would have those hard conversations that I think in 22, I was I don't want to say I was scared, but I veered away from those hard conversations. And I would just want that problem to go away, like internally.
And it never does.
And it never does.
Like maybe we just won't look at it.
Yeah.
We'll just get there.
Don't look at it.
Shoot,
but it's
go
like-
away.
But it's like those internal problems. And I think a lot of times business owners and individuals in general, like when you're in a work environment, you have these hiccups, you have these hurdles that come into play, and you just try to ignore them. And I'll say the only thing that comes from that is they continuously get worse. And I mean, you can ask everyone at this table. If I have an issue with anything that day, I am wanting to fucking solve it.
So
I do not want it to go on to the next day. I might have a coughing fit here too, so bear with me on my coughing.
I think that goes into anyone at any position, really. I've had talks with multiple people where they have something come up, and you talk to those people that handle it immediately, and it's not really an issue. It gets resolved pretty quickly. But when you talk to someone and then they ponder on it for a week, 2, a month, it becomes bigger, and then that can lead to losing clients, losing relationships with vendors, no matter what it is. And that's because they presume in that first instance that the worst is going to happen.
So they're building those. The same thing is if just like you build I'm going to say that falsified reality or this future reality, the same thing's happening when someone has an issue. They start building all of the worst case scenarios in their head that it's like, maybe my boss is pissed at me. Maybe I didn't do this right. Maybe he's just an asshole. Maybe they're just bad managers. Maybe and then all of a sudden all these things just start winding up. And then emotions start coming into play. And I'll say when you are in business and you let emotions control your decisions, you lose all the time. Anyone that's in business that lets emotion control them, they will lose. You have to start understanding how to make business decisions that aren't emotion controlled. But you start now all of a sudden you have all these different things playing, and that problem that could have been solved the first day, that could have been maybe in the beginning they're uncomfortable conversations.
Yeah.
But you will make leaps and bounds to the next level having those when you need to.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I gave Caden the book Rich Dad Poor Dad to start reading today, and I was flipping through it and looking at how much stuff I had underlined in it, and I stopped on a page, and one of the quotes that I had underlined and I really liked from it was something along the lines of use your emotions to think, don't think with your emotions, or something like that.
Yeah.
I might have got that backwards.
I feel like it's a natural human tendency though to be emotional and think of the worst. What's the worst possible outcome? I do feel like you have to almost train your mind for the majority of people to not think like that and to rationally have a conversation with yourself and look at the bigger picture. Because I don't know, in my opinion, just talking to people and knowing, even myself, I feel like your mind usually goes to that spot 100%. If you don't let it. If you let it, so.
Quick question on that is, when people think about it, you can think about all the negatives. What I found out is what will always solve that fast is that person calls you on the phone, you answer that phone, everything goes right out the window and you immediately know what you need to do. You've had an issue, it's like, man, this come up, they call the phone, it's like you could have been thinking about every scenario, they answer the phone, you're like, hey, and then you start working through, like, hey, this is going on with X, Y, and Z, and we found out is honesty goes much further because we've been on opposite sides of, not opposite sides, but we've been against companies that have lied to clients, and we're like, that's just not true. Like, if that is great, we can hire them and we'll be multi-billionaires overnight because that sounds like the best thing ever. And then it just comes out where it's not true.
And that's, once again, this can go internally, externally, either way. That from an external side, you always have to have those conversations quickly also. But if you have a client we learned it in the car business, like if you let clients stew on stuff, it just gets worse and worse and worse. And it can be a really little problem that ends up you being the worst people on the planet because their battery died.
And they're doing the same thing you're doing.
But it's the same thing that most people will in a lifetime never understand how to control their emotions. And the reason I had to start understanding it was, as running a company, I can't make emotional decisions all the time because that is not for the betterment of the company for a day-to-day operation. That I know I have to bring energy to the office every day. I know that's part of my role, that like I know I have to paint the vision all the time of where we're going. I know that's part of my role. I know that I have to be building that culture for people to follow into, to where it's like the roles change and the roles shift, but it's having those conversations as we scale that sometimes aren't always fun, but I'm never coming at them from a ill position.
Yeah.
That when I have those conversations, I want the best for the people that I'm talking with. And that's where it's kind of hard sometimes, because a lot of times people take them personally. And I was on the other side of the table. When I was in the car business, my dad used to have, I called them lectures, and I thought it was just him wanting to lecture me for no reason. But I look back at it now that he was wanting the best for me to grow, and I just didn't see it at the time. I wasn't grown up enough.
Yeah,
I wasn't mature enough.
Maturity.
And I let my emotions control those thoughts and those moments that I really wish I could go back to rehab those conversations, because they would have helped me a lot. But and I see the same thing in a lot of people that work at MMG. I see me just years back where it's like not understanding. And that's where it's like I'm trying to figure out how to bridge that to say, like, this is not me coming at you personally. This is me wanting the most for you.
I've had that conversation with an individual just a week or two ago where what I said, once I said it, I realized it sounded wrong. And I'm like, I'm not coming off from an ill side. I'm like, I want you to grow as an individual. I want you to be better. And I'm like, that's what we're all here to do. Like, along with working, we all still have bills we have to pay. But alongside that, we're all building as individuals, and we want the best for everyone in there. And after I went that way, I think the conversation went much better. But like right when I said it, if I would just left at that, they would be like, dude's an asshole.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's also a part of just knowing who you're talking to as well.
100%.
Some people you could leave it at that and it's fine, but there's others you can't. So
Yeah.
I think that's just knowing who you're talking to.
We've seen that firsthand.
And I think it's unique in what we do also, because I 100% understand why marketing agencies don't have the content creation side in the marketing forefront. I understand now. In the beginning when we started, I'm like, I have no idea why they don't do both. It's because we have both sides of the brain in one office. And it's figuring out how to bridge that. And I'm going to say that's probably our biggest feat on everything that we've done, is we've built something that has both sides of the brain that run and operate together.
The only other person to do that's God.
But I'm just going to say that, like, us building that and creating that has been, I'm going to say, a work of art that has been a lot of really long nights and a lot of really hard conversations and a lot of banging our head against the wall to try to figure it out. The processes, figure out how it runs smoothly. And I'm going to give Ricky mad props on the content forefront for spearheading that and taking on and building that into a full team. And I mean, Dalton, Logan, Lauren, they've all done a phenomenal job on the marketing side, and we now have Thomas and Bree on that forefront also. But
You getting choked up or coughing?
Hey, man.
We're gonna have to cut
It's
He's
okay,
over there.
commercial.
He's thinking about our host Thomas over there running the soundboard.
started thinking about Thomas, and I was about to choke myself up.
I think that's a good point, though. And one of the things that I think about with the progress that we've made in 2023 is like the growth of the leadership. I think that we've all kind of had, and it's been fun to watch just from within the group too, around each other as we've brought, new people on and kind of coached them up and gotten them to, achieve some things. It's cool to see that part of it. But I think just personally too, seeing everyone, including myself, take leaps and bounds in the leadership department is pretty cool.
I've always been excited for MMG to grow in the aspect when we started seeing just hyper growth, where it's just hiring people every single month all the time, and we have those process and procedures in place that more people in the company get to start taking roles of growing other individuals. That I feel like there's no better purpose in life. I feel like there's nothing that's more fun, there's more rewarding than getting to grow other people into that next spot in their life and help them achieve so much, not just on a work forefront, but a personal life too. That right now we're doing a fitness challenge into 24, that we want people dialed in to be their best personal self. Like, I hate in our world that work is prioritized over everything. I don't think life should be that way. You should be prioritizing yourself first. And that gives you the best version for your relationships at home. You're the best version of yourself for your family. You're the best version of yourself for your friends. You're the best version of yourself to then go to work. But it's like you build a better version of yourself when you start prioritizing things correctly in life. And it took me a long time. Coming out of the car business, it was like work, 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 work. There was nothing else.
That's all we knew.
But it's like, I mean, it was completely different in the last couple of weeks where it's like you have 2 back-to-back 4-day weekends. That never happens in the car business, ever. To where it's like that was something that was very unique, like that people were reaching out. They're like, you guys are off on Friday? I'm like, well, I still have my laptop. Like, Max is like, you feel guilty not working, don't you? I was like, yeah. I was like, I don't know like what to do with my hands.
But that's where it goes right back into if something can be resolved right then. If someone reaches out on a day off, like everyone says it's like a 4-day weekend, but it's like there's not really days off. You manage things differently on those days.
You're always taking care of clients. Like clients are always there. But we've also been lucky in a business model that we don't have accounts reaching out to us every single day. We have certain things that are on our list of things to do weekly, but it's also we can prioritize certain days really heavy and utilize our time more efficiently on certain days to then give us those opportunities to have days off. So I'm going to say that our efficiency level of what we do now is crazy difference from where we were when we started.
If we were doing this in the basement with this efficiency,
we just
that
live in the
golf
basement.
course man would have been seeing us every day.
But it's
I don't know about that.
like I said, I want to go around to like each one of you guys, and I want to know what your big win was for 23. And it doesn't have to be work related, but like what was one thing that you really feel like you made a monumental move forward in 23 doing? I'm going to start with you, Ricky.
I would say actually I was like technically, I guess you could say content director or lead content guy in 2022, but 2023 we actually built a team, and I feel like I kind of stepped up to actually attempt to lead that team more than I had the year prior. I think everybody would probably agree with that. And I would say that was the biggest for me, for sure. Like I've been in a position before, we ran some gyms, but we had such a small staff that you could just kind of do everything yourself. So being in a position where we're so busy that I have to get better at delegating and stuff, I feel like that's been a huge help for me.
Yeah. And I'm going to say that Ricky and I had, numerous conversations on this topic all over in 23, but it was something that I was in that same position for a long time. That you guys know how much I used to have my paw on everything when we were in the basement, that I want to have full control over 100% of what happened all the time. And I had to learn to trust the people around me. That's why you guys are sitting here. It's like, and I have to be able to give that trust to grow something. That if I kept my hand on everything, you can't build a 100-person company and have your hand on every single bit of work that every single person does. It's not possible. And it took me a long time to realize that. And Ricky was the same way, that he's very, I'm going to say like OCD way of how things are done.
Yeah.
That it's like when you watch it and you put it together, and then sometimes it's like when it's not right, you're like, I'll just do it. And I'm like, once again, it used to be me. I was like, if it's not done right, like I'll just do it. It's not a big deal.
I mean, sometimes that still is you.
But it's once in a while. But it's also like you have to have a spot where you have to be able to train and teach to elevate that person to that spot, to then free up that time in the future for yourself. So I used to be playing one move at a time. Now I've started understanding how to play 5 to 10 moves ahead. Mm-hmm. That we're not building for right now. Yeah. We're building for 12 months from now.
So I think you had to step in to take care of it. Now I think there's other avenues to take. I think some of the things you jump in on, I think it's because you enjoy, which if something's not going on, I'm not saying you're jumping in really. I'd say you're helping out.
Yeah. So
I wouldn't even say you're jumping in at that point.
And I'll say I jump on the camera here and there. It's like, I feel like I'm in a unique spot because I do use both sides of my brain pretty well. And it's like I enjoy doing content. I feel like I have an eye for it. It's something that's one of the reasons I started MMG, to where it's like I do like jumping on a camera sometimes and seeing what I can come up with.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean that's my full-time job. Like that's something that I have to leave to the content team. And there's things I've put together that never even get aired. That it's like, hey, that didn't meet the standard. Or there's sometimes I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. Or sometimes I'll be working on something and like 45 minutes in, I'm like, I have something that's like actually needs to be done. This doesn't need to be done, so I'm just scratching it and moving on to the next thing. But no, I think stepping up to the plate and becoming that, building a content team and the cohesion in that content team right now is really cool, watching it evolve.
Yeah, it is.
That I look at a year ago, we had a few content people and it was just like everyone's just running their own lanes.
Yeah, it was totally,
There was no process. Yeah, it was everyone's a lone wolf, and it was like I feel like I was having conversations every day, talking people off of the cliff. Like it was just one after another, after another, after another. But there was no, I didn't see an end in sight.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like we had that conversation. I'm like, if we figure this out, it will be huge. And now we have a much larger content team with the right people.
Well, it's actually a content team now.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I feel they see the bigger vision and they see being part of that team. And it's cool that you'll watch stories or something on Instagram. The content team's all out at lunch or something and they're eating together and they're like,
Blue Line.
they became friends.
They do love Blue Line.
They do love Blue Line.
It's awesome to see. I do agree with that. We definitely had a bunch of content creators before, but we never had a content team.
Yeah.
Totally. Now. And that's major kudos to you, Ricky, and major kudos to those guys on the team because they're doing a phenomenal job.
For sure.
I think everyone on that forefront stepped up. That is probably one of the things at the end of 23 that that's a huge, huge, huge win for 23 is that evolving to what it's became. Because I will say probably 6 months ago, I was thinking about just hanging the hat up for the content side. I'm like, we become a nationwide ad agency and
I was talking to my uncle about that last week, and he was kind of surprised that we had those people working in the same office and that we actually meshed and got along.
yeah.
Like
It's weird because
he was like thoroughly shocked, but he's like, that's incredible because usually like those are like two different kinds of people. Like
100%.
When they say you can't fit a square through a circle, if you try hard enough, it will fit.
But it's one of those things that like
shaved edges.
and I had a lot of people that like I know people that do all the different testing of people and everything. They're like, you will not mesh two opposite sides of the brain together in one company. And I'm like, I'm telling you, when we do, it's going to be magic. It's something that I look at where we've gotten to. In the beginning, I was always like fearful of like someone knocking MMG off. Like I will say the first like 2 years, I'm like, what if somebody knocks us off and comes in with a lot more money or something?
Someone will try. Still, probably.
I'm fucking
Good
hoping
luck.
so.
Good luck.
But now I see all the puzzle pieces that had to be put in place, and I'm not fearful of it anymore. Like I look at everything that had to be formed correctly to lead us to where we're at, and it's like if somebody can align all those stars the way that we have, they 100% deserve to stand right where we are.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is bringing those two forefronts together to mesh the way that they do is crazy cool.
100%. That was trial and error, and
A lot of failure.
but
A lot of error.
A lot of error.
But at the end of the day, the realizing, I think Ricky's very good at realizing people's way they need to learn. I think you are the same. So I think when you figured out with each one of the content creators, they're all different, but they're all very good at what they do in their own way. And we were talking about this before we even sat down, was I look at all of them and they sit there and they'll go over and one teaches one of them something they know, and then another one will teach another one what they know, and the way they all work as a team on whether it's on the same project or a different project is actually really cool to see, because used to it's like, hey, one of them just like, hey, that's not very good, I'd redo that. And then it's like, okay. But now they sit there, they're like, hey, have you thought about doing this? Try this. And I'll show you how to do this, speed up your time a little bit on this. And the stuff they're putting out now, I think, is better than when they started.
And I think part of that also goes to they work well as a team, but part of the reason they work well as a team is they happen to have the humility
That's what I was gonna say.
to a lot of content creators, artists, photographers, videographers have a huge ego that gets in the way of receiving that feedback.
I think that was just good. I mean, good job of finding people, that are humble enough and that are willing to learn and that, don't have a huge chip on their shoulder.
And
I think it's a good job for you guys for finding them.
It's all for Ricky asking people what their name is at the gym and when he's getting food.
We have some crazy stories on
That
how
was-
we
that
fired
was-
people.
That was pretty cool.
What I don't get is how a lot of these content creators end up with this huge chip on their shoulder. Like a bunch of nobodies out there that are content creators that have no following, do trash work, and they think that they're like the bee's knees because they're artists.
Well, I feel like if you're a freelance and you're a freelance, content creator, like you almost have to believe in yourself.
Yeah, but
Maybe.
most
I
of
mean,
them are
'cause, like,
starving, and
Who's
most of
gonna
them.
who's gonna tell you your shit sucks?
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, like,
Your mom
I
is.
just look at it like,
Well, your dad might. Mom's gonna be like, "That's so good."
No, but I mean,
Johnny."
it's like no one's there to tell them it sucks. They've just been doing it for so long. It's just they think.
and it's like I don't know what I don't know. I feel like the content space is weird as a whole because you have all these people out freelancing, and like they tell people that they do that, but they don't do it for a living because they haven't figured out how to sell it for money. To where they actually have like a normal job, and then they do that on the side. But then when anyone asks them, they're like, "I'm a freelance videographer." I'm like, "Well, how do you pay your bills?" Oh, well, I actually like work at T-Mobile. Like that's like my job. But it's like, and then they get this chip on
like
their
a
shoulder, like
hobbyist.
that they're like
Hobbyist.
this great content creator. I'm like, you can't figure out if you were that great, people would be offering you money all over the place.
Do you do content for that company?
you guys think it's like a buzz thing now? Like, oh, I'm a content creator.
Oh, totally.
Oh, 100%.
It's like
It
a-
is.
it's like a buzzword.
and I think that there are a lot of good content creators out there. Maybe they're good at what they do, but they're not good business people, and that's a big difference.
Yeah. And I will say that the content forefront, I feel like that side of the brain normally doesn't come with the business oriented side also, to where it's understanding business, understanding how to leverage companies for how that benefits them and how to partner it all together. That I saw the void with the marketing side not having the content to make the marketing perform better.
Yeah.
To where once I saw that, I was like, if we could partner all this together and align all these stars, it would be great. When I first originally put that together for MMG, I was like, this is easy. I was like,
Money making enterprise.
yeah. Was I wrong? Been a lot harder to put it all together than I thought. But as it's like coming together now, we're starting to see this like these processes come to play. But it's now we're putting these processes into place to hold 50 content creators.
Yeah.
Like, and that's what we're going to be able to build is because when the future content creators come in, they're going to know exactly how it runs and operates. They're not going to be like, you can't come in and just be a lone wolf in an MMG content team.
Well, and I think part of that is in the beginning, it was just pretty easy to handle the workload.
Yeah.
So we didn't need the systems. And at some point, your systemless structure is going to break, and that's going to be painful.
Yeah.
And it was.
It was
and it
very
took us a while to
painful.
figure it out, but we're definitely heading the right direction.
I think we've been a lot better setting expectations too, on
Yeah.
what we expect out of new people. Like laying those ground rules like from the beginning.
Yeah, we had a lot of yelling matches, I'm going to say, in this garage, trying to figure out how those processes work and how that
Yeah.
they were handled.
I think that
But-
that's part of the transition that we're making, and one of the points I was going to hit on is I feel like towards the end of this year we started to kind of exit the startup phase of a business and kind of get into that scale up phase. And I think that that's one of the things in the beginning when you're a startup, you're really hiring like, hey, we don't know what every day is going to look like, but come on, are you down to ride?
Not really sure
Yeah.
what you're going to do, but
Now it's like, okay, we have the workload. We need you to handle this job. You're
Yeah.
going to do this. This is what we expect out of you, and this is what's going to happen.
and what
So
a better environment for them to drop into.
it's such a cool transition too.
When Ricky and Lauren first showed up, they're like, what do we do? I'm like, I don't know.
I don't.
Crickets.
We don't have a whole lot of work right now. I'm thinking about just how like whack that was. Like when you guys walked into that, like they're texting me like the day before they come to the basement. Like, do we just like ring the doorbell?
Yeah, I was like,
what-
first off, how do we even get inside?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's like 8:30.
Oh
They're
yeah,
like, "How do
sorry,
get
we didn't tell
inside?"
you the door code. We thought you already
Yeah.
knew it.
So I'm like, oh, here's the door code to get in my
Ding
front door.
dong.
And then they're like, so like, do we just like come in and go straight to the basement? I'm like, oh no, you look like you're hanging out. And
No, you're not allowed in the kitchen.
Yeah, don't go in the kitchen.
Yeah.
It's like, where do we go?
Dude, that had to be such a weird fucking feeling for you guys.
Yeah, it totally was.
Yeah.
And
Because
then
like they had already at least been at the
this.
house.
Like
Yeah.
we had been here.
Can you imagine Dalton? He had to walk up the stairs. He's like, "Whoa, I'm going into his extra bedroom." What?
And
Hope he
here
doesn't have a
taking
kid.
naps.
Where our room's gonna get taken.
We're right next to the crib, dude. It's pretty chill.
Yeah, but like Ricky and Lauren started, and they were like, I remember sitting with you guys having sushi, and they're like, well, what's the workload look like? I'm like, I'm not really sure.
We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
Tell you on the day you
Like,
start.
we'll figure it out. And then they're texting, they're like, what do we wear? I'm like, I haven't been
Khakis.
presented. I haven't been presented with that
No
question.
idea.
Three-piece suit
And
Yeah,
in the basement.
they were like,
lots
I'm
of
like,
clients are coming over.
I mean, just like really whatever you want. Like,
So this is
I'm
when
cool.
Dane was like, he's like, if you ever meet with anyone, he's like, let them know you're going back to the office,
Yeah.
not the basement.
The
yeah,
office
you're going
is
back to the
liberty.
office. Hey, office. Actually, I think my brother has a client at the office right now. You want to meet at Saltgrass? I'll cover
Dane
us
was a
lunch.
big fan of meetings at restaurants.
he was.
Hey, you know what? Actually, something's going on at the office, or someone called me like, hey, when I get back to the office,
Yeah.
learned how to do that like a year and a
One of the times Dre
Maybe a
goes,
year and a half
yeah, I'll let you know when we get back to the basement. I'm like, did you just say that? I'm like, do not say that.
The basement of the office.
Yeah.
So,
Because the
Yeah.
thing is, like, we were selling real accounts at top dollar price tags that just had this, like, which the workload was getting done. It was like, it was nails, but it was just like, I knew that the perception of
Do you
Well,
know- do you know why
basement
that
sounds a
worked?
lot worse than it actually is. Like,
basement's pretty dope.
The reason that worked is because your digital forefront's more important than your physical forefront.
No one even knew what the physical forefront was.
We didn't have one.
Yeah, there wasn't one. But like,
But it's not as bad as a typical basement. If you followed us for any amount of time, you've probably seen pictures, and it's
Yeah.
I mean,
Can I
we've
swing
been.
I do
by
miss-
the
I do
office?
miss it
Let's
every
take
once
a
in a
step
while.
back real quick. We used to be in the upstairs bedroom.
That's
It was
what-
hot.
Hot
there.
ass upstairs
Hey.
bedroom.
I have some good videos of Dane trying to learn to play the guitar. So back in those
That's
days,
what we did in our free time.
back in those days, like realistically, if the efficiency was where it's at now, I think we worked 3 days a week, maybe.
Could you
We didn't work a
send?
whole lot.
Could you send Caden those videos so he can splice it into a reel?
I don't
Yeah,
know.
that'd be cool.
I don't know. That'd be pretty cool.
Ima- Imagine if Dre would have told someone that he was coming back to the bedroom, though.
No, but it was probably 3 days a week, and we would sit there, and I'm like, you want to talk about really not knowing what you're doing? I'd show up here, I'm like, so.
Do we have work today?
I'm like, what are we doing today? Dane's like, oh, we're going to the golf course. Or it's like, hey, I know it's like the first day it's been snowing all day. We're going to go photo. I'm like, bro. And then we got there. He's like, you don't
Bro,
learn how to
you
use a
good?
It's not
drone?
that easy, bro.
He'd be like, you want to learn how to use a drone? I'm like,
Fucking
dude, it's freezing
jam
out.
in.
He's like, yeah, hop out. Go film. I'm like, I don't even know how to work this thing. But it was,
Hey, I'm leaving. Go, throw this video together.
yeah.
I know you guys have never used Premiere Pro before, but just do it.
But honestly,
He
we
gets back. That's not quite what I was looking for. But,
But that goes back
we
to
learned a
part
lot
of the,
on that
the-
stuff where it's like
the learning.
literally just put your feet to the fire. We're gonna see if it works, and we both got a lot better at
I do think
kind of editing smaller things.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say that bigger stuff. Like I'm definitely not competing in.
Hey, I showed Bree some videos the other day of videos I edited, and she was impressed.
Well, I know what to look for now. I know what to look for now. I'll be like, hey, maybe we should change like X, Y, and Z. And they'll be like, oh, hey, I don't know, maybe a keyframe.
Yeah, I don't know.
No,
how to
I'm
do it,
pretty
but-
good.
Does that
I'm
sound
pretty
right?
good at giving feedback on videos.
I don't know how to do
Actually,
it.
I know
I have gotten good at
I
constructive
have a
criticism on
vision. I just
videos.
can't do it.
I know I
myself.
don't like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Whatever
don't know
that
what I
is,
want.
no.
I don't like that.
Try again.
Shuffle.
Dalton, what is your big win for 2023?
Yeah, I've been trying to think of that. I hate to piggyback off what Ricky was saying. Obviously, I don't manage as many people as he does, but I think had an opportunity to like halfway through the year, and I think didn't do too well at that. Like, didn't really want to give up my work. You know, probably just bullheadedness.
Well, you wanted to make sure it got done, and that's the same kind of deal.
But not that and not utilizing someone. I think it was just like not wanting to put the effort into to train somebody. And with Bree, I feel like I put a lot more effort in with her to train her and to once again set expectations on what we're looking for. Not just like, hey, yeah, do this for me, just random shit. With Bree, she actually has a structure. She knows what she's doing. So I think in a leadership aspect, I've still have for sure ways to go, but I think I've taken some big strides in that department. Also, time management for me, I think has been I've gotten a lot better at that this year. I feel like it was kind of a struggle there for a while, like learning how to juggle, doing more than just different things in the same day, and not. I think I'm a lot better at planning out what I'm going to do now, as opposed to just like coming in and doing it. And I definitely think I'm more efficient with a plan.
Yeah, and I was telling you guys the other morning I had a good group of people sitting in the conference room, and we were talking about. I like putting a very, very, very large workload on people to figure out where their breaking point is, and I think there's a lot of people out there that disagree with that. But it's also like you have to figure out how someone reacts under pressure. You have to figure out how someone. Are they the team player that steps up to the plate that says, hey, there's a shit ton of work that needs to be done. I stay late. I come in early. I do what needs to be done. I put in the work. And are they that person? And that's what I've always I try to find that in people because those are the people I'll bet everything on. Mm-hmm. Those people, when I find them, and it's we have a lot of them in MMG, and that's a trait that I see in people, but you only figure that out from someone is when they have a crazy amount of workload. Do they crumble under pressure, or do they step up and become that person? And it's and that's where, once again, we've taken on workload after taking on crazy amounts of work. And I went and bid some big accounts, and Dre's like, what are we going to do? I was like, we got the right people in place. Let's fucking ride. And I have 100% confidence in it because I know the pressure that you guys can take. And I know that the pressure isn't going to break you guys, just like it's not going to break me. And so it's putting that on you guys makes it to where when you have those leadership roles, you have to start doing those same things to people under you, is find out where that breaking point is. Find out make that person start learning how to be efficient with their time. Make them start learning time management. Don't let them just go through life just willy-nilly, because there's a lot of people that what they do in their 9-to-5 job Monday through Friday, they could get 3 times as much done if they were efficient with their time.
So that's what I was going to say is those people that break under pressure, they get a mass amount of workload. They learn to put a process in place to do it more efficient. Like Dalton and I, when we were manning a different division of the company a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, we were sitting there. It's we were under pressure, and you're like, let's bring on more accounts. I'm like, bro, we are maxed. So then we add another person. And then what a lot of people don't realize is you can add another person, but your efficiency goes back a bit because at the same time you're teaching someone, which it does take time to teach someone to handle the amount of workload you're doing. That has become the new norm. But with those processes in place, you should be able to teach them quick enough for them to take over. And then I think that's where the skill comes into. They figured out how to take that, say, 10-hour day, compress it into a 6-hour day with processes and everything in place, so then they can add on an extra 2 to 4 hours to maximize what they're doing.
Yeah, and I think that's something you've done really well at. That it's really hard to teach people that.
Yeah.
It's something people have to find on their own. And it's just like you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. That's the same thing as you can lead someone all the way there, but the only way you're going to figure it out is putting all that pressure on them. To where it's I think you guys have done a phenomenal job at it. And we've talked about even everyone in the company breaking down what they do on a day-to-day basis to make sure when in the future when we're hiring more people that we make sure their time is delegated best to the jobs that need to be done that can free up time for the correct people. To where it's once again, those are a lot of times things that run through my head that probably when I'm saying them out loud in a meeting, they're like, that sounds fucking stupid. Because I sat on that.
It almost sounds too easy. Where you're like, dude, I could totally do
it sounds pointless, and it sounds like you're adding something else to the plate to do. That once again, I sat there and I had somebody tell me to do that, and I'm like, I already have enough things to do. I'm not going to sit there and write down what I'm doing every 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. And I was the bullheaded person that was not wanting to do any of it. And then after pushing my head against the wall, pushing my head against the wall, pushing my head against the wall. I finally did it. And I'm like, oh my God, I got like actually quite a bit of time I wasn't utilizing. Yeah. I figured out all this flex time that was sitting around that you start figuring that out. I'm like,
I feel like we've done this. So now as we bring on new people, that process, that time that it took us to figure it out, is gone.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, okay, here's the keys. This is what we want you to do, execute. And I feel like that is a huge step in scalability for us, for sure.
That's where I feel like, that's why I feel like we're at the starting line, is because I feel like this is the first time since we've been open that we have processes in place, and we're implementing software right now that there's a lot of things that are in place that makes this scalable now.
Yeah.
Because for a long time, I'm like, I don't know how this is going to work. Because, I mean, we were breaking that threshold of 9 to 10 people, and we were hitting a wall every time.
It turns out communication's super important in business.
No one would have known.
Drop that as a reel.
Yeah. little key takeaway. In case no one knew that, actually. That was the first time it's been dropped on a podcast.
But I think it goes right back into how people learn and how you communicate with people, because we all communicate, I would say, a very similar way. Some of the people we had to not communicate in the same way were, I've talked to multiple people. I love going into work. It's something where it's like, I look forward to Monday. I think it's fun. I get to hang out with all you guys. I have a good time while I'm at work. I mean, I get my stuff done, but it's still a good time. And I think a lot of people didn't find it that way.
Yeah. And I think as we scale, I reference back to the book Scale Up. They talk about how complexity multiplies so quickly in companies. And that's why most companies, out of 100 companies that hit 7 figures, only one will ever break 8 figures. Mm-hmm. And that's literally because the difference between a 7-figure company and an 8-figure company is processes and procedures and understanding how to scale at that point. And most people will never get that figured out. Because realistically, we could have gotten to that 10 number. We could have fine-tuned a couple numbers, and I could have lived a pretty comfortable life.
I don't know what that was.
I could have lived a pretty comfortable life and not overly pushed it, but that wasn't going to change your guys' lives. It wasn't going to change the lives of everyone that came to the table to do what we were set out to do.
Well, another thing is if you don't have something that's growing and has a big enough runway, you're just not going to keep A players. Like, they're going to go somewhere where they have a big runway.
And I've always been about like A players, A players, A players. Like, I don't want B players. But when you're getting A players, it builds something different, which I feel A players in today's world are searching for culture, and they're searching for that long runway that has the crazy vision. That's like, I look at what we've done in 3 years. Another 3 years, the opportunities that we're going to have in front of us are going to be nuts.
We talked about almost the same thing with just you and me.
Yeah.
We're sitting in the bedroom, Dane's like, we can keep it this size and both live pretty well. Or he's like, or we can just take the same moon. And we're like,
I think that was probably the day that I called Dalton.
I think it was because we're sitting there and we're like, we did a 5-year plan, and after 5 years, nothing would really change that much.
Yeah.
Like, realistically.
Which you have to sit there and look at that perfect vision of what you want. And I'm talking down to a T. Like, I picture it every single day. Like, I close my eyes and I'm sitting right there. I'm sitting in the house. I'm sitting there next to Madison. I have the cars. I have the people around me. I have everything that I want in life. I have the family. I have the kids that I can provide for. Madison doesn't have to work. Like, all these things. And that vision is so clear. But that vision, the only way to get there is via scale. Mm-hmm. And the only way to get there is building up all the people around, because I still want, even at that point, that vision, still as clear as it is, has the same people sitting next to me. I look at it as like, my biggest failure in life would be but the day that we go buy an MMG jet that I have no one to ride on it with me. That's the definition of failing. I feel if you get to that level and you have no one to share it with, you failed. I want to make it to where there's a laundry list of people that want to be on that thing all the time. That's how we know we made it.
I think right after that, we were sitting there and you and I were talking, Logan. I'm like, dude, you're coming on. He's like, dude, like, what would I do? I'm like, I don't know, but I'm like, we're growing, dude. I'm like, we're gonna grow pretty fast. And then I think it wasn't even that much longer.
3 months.
Yeah, 3 months after we're like.
That conversations. A lot of those conversations happened right here.
It happened right at that bar.
Really.
I will say Logan also brought in like a whole new like organizational skill set and
I think Logan
spreadsheet.
came on thinking.
I was like, dude, this guy.
You're making how much with this process? Nah, dude, trust me.
Logan came on like
whoa.
thinking we knew what we were actually doing, and showed up. He was like, "What the fuck are you people doing here?"
He had it going on with that. I'm like, man, this
Yeah.
guy's fucking.
What do you mean? We just like go grab stuff like when it's needed, and then we just
Yeah.
kind of handle everything else.
And we've been used to doing it for one store on like in our free time. So all of a sudden I'm like, dude, we can handle like 5 or 6 dealerships pretty easy, like in our free time, like with huge price tags. And I'm like, no one's doing this. So it's kind of weird. And then Logan came on. He's like, I think he was kind of looking at what we're doing. He's like, how the hell are you guys making this work with what you guys are doing?
Yeah, I remember the first time I looked at one of his spreadsheets. I'm like, you're right.
Yeah.
Probably should have already been doing this.
Yeah.
Hey, that helped out.
Hey,
my
can you teach me?
spreadsheets.
So it was funny. It was like 2-3 weeks ago. We have a huge auto group that has 11 plus stores, and we have weekly marketing calls with them every week. We have all this different stuff that's taking place with this company, and Logan sends me over this whole spreadsheet of like, and Thomas has his spreadsheet of like posts that go up every day. Logan has a full like breakdown ad spend across all the social platforms, all of Google, like where email campaigns are going, like all this stuff, like the first party data pool, where we're geofencing. And I get this huge spreadsheet. I'm looking at it. I'm like, holy shit, we've came a long ways. I'm like, I'm literally sitting at my desk. I'm like taking a picture of it. I'm sitting in Mazda. I'm like, look at where we're at. I'm like, this is stuff I used to look at like early days of MG. I'm like, one day we'll have like a spreadsheet with all this shit on it. Like,
I still go to him and like, hey, can you like change this because I want to fuck your spreadsheet? Change this number for me. Like,
I know you
we did this.
I think you got to protect some of those cells, dude.
Oh, I
you
do.
got to
Don't
lock
worry.
them.
I do. The title of the spreadsheet has in parentheses, do not edit. So.
So, Logan, 2023, what's the big win?
Mine's going to be pretty similar to Dalton. I mean, we do a lot of the same type of stuff within MMG. And, you know, in the past, leadership is something that I was kind of like prided myself on. And I'd been in positions with other companies to where I had large leadership roles, and I was, you know, in charge of a lot of people, organization, processes, and that type of stuff. And that's something that was a little weird for me, making the transition kind of into the realm of what we were doing at the time, was not having, you know, a team to lead and not having, you know, people relying on me day in, day out. And there's good and bad that come with that. But I feel like I kind of got a little complacent in my leadership skills and kind of maybe regressed a little bit in that in the beginning, just because I was so focused on, you know, what I was doing, my processes. And when you don't use skills, you lose them. So I feel like that was kind of the case for me. But, you know, towards 2023 and towards the end of this year, I feel like I've taken a lot of steps back into that, and it's kind of gotten me kind of fired up again and kind of re-going as far as that goes, especially with bringing on, you know, Thomas and Bree. They've been wonderful additions. And I mean, every week I've been having those moments where you experience something, and it's cool hearing like you talk about your experience with stepping back and taking your hands off of some of the stuff. And I don't feel like I fully kind of grasped that, feeling that you had when you did that until really like lately, these past couple of weeks, and even this week after we had our meeting Monday. And like, you know, I've handed some stuff off that I needed to be able to focus on other things, and Thomas has done a phenomenal job, you know, stepping up to the plate, and within the first couple times of him doing stuff, it being really good. And I had those moments where I'm looking at this and I'm like, man, this is a cool feeling. And I was sitting there today and I'm like, I actually have time to look at, you know, put strategy together, to look at reports, to do what I need to do. And it was kind of a weird feeling, honestly, but it felt good. And I was like, dang, this is what Dane's been talking about. So, you know, overall big win for me, I think, is personally seeing some of that leadership come back, you know, within myself. And then just seeing the growth of MMG as a whole. I feel like we've taken a lot of large steps, like you said, this year. You know, even stuff like health insurance, you know, becoming more of like a structured company. I feel like all the building blocks are in place for the first time. I think we always thought like, you know, we'll get there, we'll know when we're there. And I think it's finally starting to get to that point to where we have all the pieces in place. It's time to execute on it, and it's time to do what we always said and kind of wanted it to look like. So
I think really coming into your own in 2023 was a huge win.
yeah,
I think that it takes a lot for people to find that as an individual, that you start getting into that rhythm, you start getting into that attitude changes. You check yourself at the door every morning, and it's like, set that for the office, set that for the people around you, set that for, because when you're in a great mood, people are much more, it's a lot easier for them to approach you.
yeah,
It's a lot easier. Like, I'm not going to say I'm on 100% of the time, but there's days that I can sit at my desk and people will probably tell that I'm a little edgy about something. And they're like, well, I need to talk to them about this. I probably don't want to go talk to them right now about it. And that's what, like,
I tell them, I'm like, now's not the time, man.
so it's a lot of times like you understand timing of when to talk to people, but once that's what we were talking about earlier, having that communication level, that you should be able to set that door. And it's something I work on every single day. It's something I'm very aware of that I have to always be better at, that I don't feel like you ever become perfect at it. But you look at the great college coaches and the NFL coaches of the world, like they are unwavered in that they bring the energy level, and they are the leader of that team. Yeah. They're the leader that's supposed to, and I think you have, like we were just talking before on the Chiefs, you start seeing that wavering of emotion of certain players and what that does to everyone. Mm-hmm. That one person falls apart, and now all of a sudden you have 5 people that look up to that person, and they start falling apart because they see their leader falling apart. And it's like, that's when I feel like that's what true leadership looks like, is when you are following someone that you 100% believe in everything that they do, and that you believe in them as a whole. And it's like they are unwavered by fear. They're unwavered by whatever happens. And it's like, it's something, like I said, I have to work on all the time. That there was times that financial positions sucked at MMG. And it's like, that was something I took on, that was not, I never put that down to anyone else. That wasn't my position to put on someone else. But it was something that it was like, I've always had those conversations with, you guys are friends here too. I had those conversations, like you knew where we were at.
I mean, I'm like okay with numbers. I'm like, hey, I can do the numbers for this month. They don't add up.
yeah.
But it was just one of those things that Dre's like looking at me. He's like, what are we going to do? And he's like, kind of like, I'm like, I got it. 100% got it. Don't worry about it. Like, and I always had it. I didn't know how at the time, but it's like, those were things that had to be figured out. That was part of my role that I took on. But it's like, as a leader in any position in a company, you have to start becoming that person to everyone that's there with you. Mm-hmm. And I feel that's 23. I've seen, I mean, all of you guys at this table come in. The growth I've seen with the people in MMG is actually cooler than the growth I've seen of MMG.
Yeah.
That it's becoming its own entity. So
I think to add one last thing to that, I think sometimes you don't realize too, like how big of an impact you have on other people in the workspace, even when you're, not doing anything. Like I would have, mornings to where I was like, not like stressed out or frustrated, but I was, headphones in, just focused, like working on something, trying to get something done, and didn't really say anything to anyone, just kind of doing my own thing. And I think it was Bree that said something about it. Like those are, the mornings it's like, oh, fuck, Logan's pissed off, even though it wasn't, but it's like, that's the perception that comes off. So, that was another realization that I had. It was like, damn, I have a bigger impact on these people every day than I think about. So I need to be on my A game, and I will not do that, ever again. It'll be, something that goes through my mind every morning when I open that door. So
yeah, it's something I've focused on, that I used to think like when I would come home, when I personally felt best was when I sat at my computer all day with my headphones in and just busted things out. I'm like, I grinded till I got it. Yeah, but it's like at the end of the day, in the position that I have, that was not a benefit to the company.
Yeah.
That everyone sat and they're like, what what the fuck are they doing up there? Like, and it was like, I need to be going around creating that energy. I have to be going around creating that. Like, so it's something I know that has to be done is elevate the office, elevate the people that are in there. Like, if somebody is having a bad day, how do I bring them back up? That instead of me sitting there, there may be 2 people in the office that are having a bad day. That's 8 hours, and that's 16 hours of work that could be getting done better than I could do it. And I could go up there and throw my headphones in and just ignore it all day and then burn 16 hours there all day. Or I could go down and figure out how I have to bring them back and then go optimize 16 hours. And in the future, that might be 5 people. That might be 10 people. There may be 10 people that I have to try to optimize up. That could be 80 hours I could go capture in a day by bringing them back up to where they need to be. To where it's like, that's when you start learning as a manager. Sometimes it's throwing in your headphones and just grinding out. Sometimes isn't always the win. So, no, but it's being self-aware of those things too.
Yeah,
that
for sure.
You have to be able to have somebody say that to you.
Yeah.
And take it as constructive criticism, not being like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
not
artist
not
you
get
are.
more pissed off about it.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah, the
be-
artist you
get
are,
offensive.
Logan, you need to take that constructive criticism.
But Dre, 2023 win.
So mine actually started in 2022. So 2022, I actually thought about this a lot today after our call. 2022, the division I kind of manned dissolved. So leading into 2023, I was trying to figure out where to use my time most wisely and be the most beneficial for the company. Didn't really find that until about March. And that's when I took over the role of our finances. And then I kind of deep dove into that to make it more structured and lined out. A process that works for me. It's probably not the best process, but it works for me. And run with that the best I could. And then since then, I feel like we've had a very good year on that end, making sure the numbers are correct and organized clearly. But I still feel like there's more to do on that end. And then I would say also handling that other stuff that's not so pretty that just needs to be done. I can't take care of that stuff as well. Even though it's not pretty, it's still something I'm glad I can do. So I feel like that's my win for the year on that side. And then big one, getting married. So proposed. So I feel like that's one if I left out, I might get scolded for.
No, I think on the work forefront, Dre does man a lot of things that they don't get a lot of credit for. That just in relevance that in 2022 when I did finances and I handle all of our invoicing, I was probably a little bit more lenient than I should have been. So at the end of 2022, we had about $120,000 of written off invoices that we weren't paid for. Mm-hmm. And at the end of 2023, we have $3,000 total. So I'm going to say Dre is much better
There's
at that
been the
than
junkyard dog in there. Huh?
Yeah.
Still trying to get that 3.
Yeah. But much better than what I was doing at that position. And he took on heading the health insurance, life insurance, vision, dental, all of those things, like
all that pretty
and
stuff.
employment contracts, like just a lot of things that most people don't see in a company that I had a lot of breaks in that I knew needed to be handled, and he stepped right up to the plate and never questioned me once on any of it. And I am beyond thankful for every bit of that, because those are things that a company needs to have to run and operate correctly. And he's kind of been the man behind the mirror that almost man behind the curtain. Man behind the curtain.
That's
mirror,
Man behind the wheel.
Mirror behind the
sounds
mirror.
weird.
Am I being interrogated right now in a police station? The man behind the curtain that handles all those things that makes our operation run and work correctly. And I pretty much sat down with him one day and I said, you're going to take on the finances. You're taking on all invoicing. You're onboarding every single account. You're doing all this. I want a process put in place that introduces everyone. And I didn't give him a lot of guidelines on what to do. And I'm going to most of the
Here's
time,
the logins to the accounts.
yeah, most of the time I'll say that I gave but I'm like, I have absolutely shit the bed on doing this, so don't take any advice from me on
Let's
how
have
to
a
do
clean slate.
it. Yeah. Do it how you want to do it, because the way I did it didn't work. So no, absolutely killed it on all that stuff, and we are running a much smoother operation because of all that. And
Good job, Dre.
huge.
Takes all of us to run the ship.
But
I just make sure if you get hurt, you're taken care of.
If you
But-
fall off the ship.
If you fall off the ship, we'll pull you back again.
yeah,
Get you put back
So
together.
make sure you don't run us over.
but it's funny when we need insurance, we need whatever it is on. I didn't understand company insurance. I put Dre on it, so to handle all that, I mean, he handles
He's
100%.
super good when you let him know there's an issue. He's like, what? I'm like, that's what I'm taking.
Is that
care
what
of,
I
dude."
sound like?
Yeah. He gets all up in your face. He's like, dude, why do we have to do this?
Just
Why
let
do
the dog out.
I'm like, dude, this is why I'm handling it. I just need X, Y, and Z.
Earlier, when I think Logan said we all communicate the same way, or Dalton perhaps, we just bark at each other. we
Just all bunch
communicate in
of-
grunts.
we're all just a bunch of dogs, bro.
So Dane, what is your biggest takeaway, biggest win of 2023, business wise, MMG?
Yeah, we didn't cover this morning.
We didn't hit this on scroll.
No.
I think I put it on everyone else, and I didn't answer it for myself. My biggest win is watching the evolution of the people inside of MMG. That I've watched a lot of people step up to the plate, and a lot of people come into their own. That I always knew MMG to be great and be what I always envisioned it was going to be built around people. And in today's world, so many people are focused on software and this and that, and I feel like we've lost sight of true relationship and true people to people interaction, and that is the heartbeat of the company. And it's, for the longest time, I thought that heartbeat was me, and I've came to the spot that I always had a fear in my head if something happened to me that MMG wouldn't continue on. And after 2023, I know that if anything was to happen to me, MMG would 100% pursue on without me. So pretty cool to see it come full circle and take on its own on what it is. And that's just because everyone has grown to who they're supposed to be, and they're evolving as people, and I find the joy in that. And it's not always just on the work forefront, it's on everything that everyone's doing in their lives. And it's my goals in 23 were all very business oriented, very financial structured, and I have figured out that the growth of this and the heartbeat of this isn't all a financial thing. It is a culture thing. It is 24. I'm focusing on culture. I'm focusing on the people that are around. And when I focus on that, the money comes secondary. And my win is the win of everyone in the office. And we have a content team that now runs and operates that I don't have to have my hand in. We have a marketing side that runs and operates I don't have to have my hand in. We have a finance side that runs and operates I don't have to have my hand in. Towards the company is running as a machine should. Before it didn't.
You just gotta keep changing the oil.
Yeah, the beginning, the machine was very broken. I don't want to say it was a machine, but it was just a huge conglomerate of random shit, quite frankly. That now it's actually turned into something that I feel great that everyone in the office has health insurance now. That was something that I felt guilty about a lot of times, that I hadn't built something that people had that. I feel like I wasn't doing the service that I need to do. So
I feel like that's a lot of things in growth you don't really account for, of those minor costs of you willing to take on half of all
I'm not
that.
going to say, the thing is, when you get into employees, you get employment tax, you get into the health insurance, covering parts of that, help cover life insurance. Like there's so many things that people don't think about cost wise in a business that, once again, it's been new to me. That I remember back in the dealership days where I'm like, they're just printing money. It's just not coming down to us. I didn't realize.
I'm doing the math, but it's like then you said there's
you're doing the math.
You're
doing the math. You just don't have all the numbers. And once you start really getting integrated in it and seeing what all those numbers are, the game changes. And I think a lot of times people never understand the game to even play it. So I feel like this is the first time that I understand the game, and I understand that the only way to win the game is with all the right pieces on your side. And I'm going to say I have all the right pieces on my side. So it's a game that the only outcome for me now is to win it. And it's everyone's positioned where they're supposed to, and it's time to start. So I'm pretty excited for 24. I'm super fucking excited for 24, actually. It's going to be lights out, that we have everything set exactly the way it needs to be set to go out and fucking dominate.
Hell yeah.
Let's do it.
So,
hell yeah, brother.
Any other final thoughts? I feel like we didn't get into 24 that much, but
Nice hoodie.
Oh yeah.
we'll just go. We'll just
No hat.
we'll just call this as a
2023
recap. But apologize for my voice and my
I'm just getting so emotional over here.
powered through it.
Yeah, this was an emotional.
If you watch the podcast next year, you will see our growth. If you're watching the podcast every week, you will see the growth we're having. And then at the end of 2024, we'll give you the recap. Show you exactly what we did.
It's gonna be a good tradition.
I'm hoping in the next.
It's cool to look back.
I don't know by the end of
Recap
24 or if
podcast.
it's by the end of 25, but I want to get to where this is done in an auditorium that we can have guests at every single week. That anybody that's been on the podcast will always be invited to future podcasts, and I want to make it to where it's an event every single week at MMG headquarters. That it is something that this has grown into. We didn't even talk about the podcast on what it's grown into and everything else on. I mean, we have so many different avenues of things that are happening. We have so many different things that are being implemented in the marketplace now that we didn't have years before. So,
If you want to know how to get off the ground, hopefully this gave you a little bit to get off the ground. Once you're off the ground for a year, we'll tell you how to go from there.
just trust the process of what you do.
Yeah.
Trust the people around you. Trust the process, and be consistent at it.
Don't be afraid to do it either.
Yeah. Don't be afraid to take the step forward. Take the step forward and push it.
I mean, if that's the thing, if none of us ever took this step, like you guys were on the path to, have something good, have a good life per se at the dealership. Like you guys were on that trajectory. I was on that trajectory in the corporate ladder. Like I was going to climb it. I was going to have a good life, whatever. Dalton, same thing. Ricky, same thing. But,
Debatable.
maybe not. But we all took a step, took a risk, took a chance to build something and, bet on ourselves. And we would all, not be the people that we are if we wouldn't have taken that chance. So you'll never know how much reward is on the other side of that if you never step off the ledge.
I don't think it matters how old you are. No matter how old you are, like there's a job out there. If you sit there and you hate every day you go to work, there's a different job out there that you'll enjoy more than what you're doing now.
And I think Logan kind of hit the nail on the head there too, that this wasn't just me betting on myself. I think that's a misconception a lot of times people look at, that this was me betting on myself. It was every one of you guys betting on yourselves also coming to something like this. And I'll never be able to thank you guys enough. Like I love everyone at MMG and everything, but there's a special spot in my heart for the basement crew that I'll say that we talk about how weird that was coming in. And that's just something that people won't get to experience, but it's a lot easier stepping into a job that's something that's already built up, that's already established. Yeah. It's really hard to go bet on somebody sitting in a basement. And
What's cool is sometime down the road, probably closer than we think, we're going to be saying that about you remember the River
office
Market
group.
office
I know.
group?
Yeah.
The
I know.
first office?
we're gonna end up with like a different set. So the River Market's a place I will always pay for. That's something
That became a fixed expense.
it will be something that when
Jeez.
we build our next place, we will do perfectly fine to maintain that place, and then it will turn into something that is. There's certain sentimental things I hold in life. I have an F-150 that sits in that garage. That's one of them, and that office is going to be another one. That I hope at some point in my life I'm at a position to buy that whole entire building. That's something that we own, and we don't even have to run and operate out of there, but we can always refer back to 415 Delaware, Suite 2W.
In case you want to send us anything,
Yeah.
that's the address.
Yeah.
So I think that's it. Once again,
That's it.
Boom.
Guess we're done here.
I think that's it.
2023 is over.
2023 is over. It's time to dominate 2024. Don't live in the past. Drive the fuck forward.
Let's get it.
So let's get it, make it happen. Peace.
Thanks for listening to the M3 Podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Want to learn more? Check us out on Instagram at Moss Marketing Group, on Facebook at Moss Marketing 58, or on our website at mossmarketinggroup.com.